at the Muddy Puddle Teacher, we're more than just about teaching and learning and an approach that supports the children. Of course, that's a massive part of what we do. We're also an ethos and an approach. We have a voice and we really do focus a lot on the well-being of the staff, mainly because of our own personal issues and collective issues here, our struggles being in school. And for me personally, being a mother was probably the biggest struggle professionally. When I had my first child, I seemed to manage my workload very well. As soon as I had my second, I found it really difficult. Obviously double the workload there at home, but just I had my first child was a really good sleeper, so I was able to manage work and time. My second child, Florence, she was a little bit more tricky, so she didn't really sleep until 11 months, and I think that's when I found things quite hard. And I did go back part-time the second time round, but I think more so it was this sort of like argument in my head that I was spending, because I was teaching every morning, and then in the afternoons I was with Florence, but I was marking. And it was more this sort of like argument in my head that I was spending so much time with other children, that where was the sort of like care and attention for my own, because I was so busy working all of the time. And that's obviously when I decided to leave teaching, and I went and did my Forest Schools little group for a bit, and that expanded into Muddy Puddle Training, which then expanded into Muddy Puddle Resources, which expanded into the book, and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, great. And everybody looks at that story and thinks, wow, that's an amazing story. And it was a hell of a lot of work as well. On top of that, it was almost like a bee in my bonnet that I just couldn't stop doing it. But financially, it was very difficult for my family at the time to have to go through that and lose work. And because of my story, I do get lots of emails from working mamas who want some advice on where to go next. And my advice always is, and I've had quite a lot of emails this week about it, my advice is, and I think it's because autumn is a really long term, it's harder work that first term, because you're getting the children used to your routines, used to this increase in workload. For some, the reception children moving to year one, you've got to feel for the year one teachers who are then embedding, hopefully, more continuous play, but probably embedding a little bit more sit down work. But the children have had a long break. It's a hard half term. So I do get lots more emails this time of year saying that, think about leaving teaching, what are my options? And my advice to all of you would be to not leave your roles. I know it gets difficult sometimes. I know you've got, if you've got children and families that you're also caring for on top of that, but just to look for other options first. My first thing that you need to do is you need to go and communicate your feelings to your senior management team. Tell them how you're feeling, why you're feeling what you're feeling, and if there's anything they can do to help. And sometimes it's just actually getting that off your chest. You don't need to. I remember having this amazing head teacher called Margaret, who said I'd had a really bad breakup, and normally I'd be there working, getting on, but I really had a duty of care to myself at that time. So I was coming in on time, but then I was making sure that I got my work done, and I was leaving at an appropriate hour really to get home and get rested and try and recoup. And I didn't tell her. I just sort of got on with it, because professionally as teachers, sometimes we feel that sharing our emotions isn't professional for some reason. That's not always the case, but sometimes. And then I just broke down one day, and I was so embarrassed. And she was just like, you know what? You have to tell us how you're thinking and feeling. We can't read your mind, so you've got to tell us so we can take care of you too. And yeah, absolutely true, she was. So yeah, you've got to communicate first of all. If that does fail, because to be perfectly honest, for some of you it will, and I know I've been there myself. If that fails, then you need to take control of your life, really, don't you, and look at your options. Moving schools can be a tricky one, especially if you don't know much about the school, about the people. We're still at this stage whereby so many schools, it's people-based, isn't it? So you might fit in one school, you might not another. I've been to one school and been outstanding, and then in the other needed room for improvement. Doing the same lesson. I actually did the same lesson in one school, got outstanding, the same lesson in another, and it was satisfactory. I mean, that's how sort of like, ambiguous this teaching industry is. So really look into the schools and get to know the schools. If you're working part-time, go work voluntary somewhere at a school that you like the look of, and try and get a feel for them before you make that big move. Because if your confidence is already down and then you move somewhere else that's not your place, your confidence can come down again, and that's when people end up leaving teaching, and that's what I don't want. There's so many fabulous teachers I know of that have left teaching, and I'm just trying to give you avenues to try and get to your happy place, because there is that school, that forever school there for you. You've just got to find it. This is why I really like the way that nurseries adapt approaches. There's so many approaches in early years in nurseries, and I think when they cling on to approach, it really tells staff what the ethos is and what the approach is. And I really would like schools to start doing that, which is why I created Muddy Puddles as an approach. And there are many schools out there using our approach, nurturing mental strength, well-being, keeping kids active, having those at the core of what you do. Although academia is a big part, having a good core and a good belief system helps staff who come to you understand what they're coming in for, and it also helps parents as well understand what the school's all about. But yes, try and look at your options. There's also supply teaching as well. That is a good way of you finding your forever school too. And obviously now with COVID and things like that, it's really helpful. It's really busy time to do supply teaching. I've done supply teaching as well. And it makes you go out there and understand the schools that are like you, and sort of get your confidence again and get your self-belief back of what kind of school is a school for you. So there are a few more options. Obviously, if you really need a break from teaching, then take a break from teaching. But remember, there's always that supply teaching to just keep you in that loop if needs be. For me, I really wanted to be with my children more, and all of that worked well for me. Still to this day, I still am the sneaky supply teacher, so I still go out every now and again and do a bit of supply teaching because I need to be teaching. It's just in my blood, and I feel far too young to be sort of like backing away from it right now. I also do voluntary work in schools as well, so I remember that as well. If you're just really wanting to still keep your foot in the door, because I miss the nativities, I miss the Easter parades, I miss just the day-to-dayness of the children. Volunteering is a really great way, and it makes you feel fabulous. So I still volunteer as well in schools. That's another option. There's also options for working for companies such as Twinkle. I've also worked for Twinkle. I've been here, there and everywhere. I've worked for Twinkle before. Twinkle are great, and a great workforce, great staff, great teams, great ethos and positivity at Twinkle. So look for options there as well, and it's work from home when you work for them. So yeah, I hope that's helpful to all of those working parents out there. It's not always the working mamas, but people that are wanting to balance working with their children, being there for their children and working at the same time, but still keeping. When I left teaching, I never quite felt myself until I got back into it. It was a big part of me that was missing all of the time. So I feel like I've got the right work balance now, working for Muddy Puddles and doing what I need for you guys and the business. Obviously I've got the book coming out in May 2021, so lots of busyness, but I'm not an office person, so for me doing a bit of supply here and again and volunteering helps me keep the loop in the game, but also that need to be around children, teaching children, helping children. So I hope that helps. If you ever need us, remember there's always a teacher on live chat. Whether you're a subscriber or not, we will still support you in any sort of tips and hints you want, not just with the outdoors or around our ethos, but just, help with teaching and signposting you into the right places. But also, obviously we've got the site and we've got my email address. So info@muddypuddleteacher.co.uk, and we can refer you to me if you need help. But there's also people on there, teachers as well, that will help you too. So I hope that's helpful, and I want you to have a really, really, positive look forward to your future. And just remember that things can change, and day to day they can change. Just have a positive mindset and just know that today's today, this week's this week. Look forward and enjoy yourselves and be positive.